It is now 6:06.
Yes, I agree.
You all set? Okay. Okay, this is the regular Woodbridge Board of Finance monthly meeting for Thursday, February 20th. And the first item is public comments. Anybody? No? Okay. Second item, which I asked to be put on, is update on fiscal year 2021 budget. Needless to say, as we talked about at our last budget meeting, and I think we're gonna hear something tonight, that the grand list has gone down by $40 million, or roughly 4%. So if we were to come in with a 0% increase on the budget, the mill rate is still gonna go up. Now, and the mill rate is gonna go up no matter what, because I don't think we're gonna come in at zero, but you read in the paper, it's not unique. People make it seem like what's going on is unique to Woodbridge. Our North Haven reported the past week that their grand list went up by 10%. And yet I had two clients come in to me. People who come in to me for their tax returns seem to feel the need to bring their reassessment notices. It has nothing to do with income tax. But I had one gentleman come in, and his assessment on his house went down by $50,000. I had another person come in and went down by $15,000. So residential real estate in the state of Connecticut is not doing well. Woodbridge, North Haven, every town. I have a client in Oxford who bought a house for $595 maybe 10 years ago, and he said he'd be happy to sell it for $450. So this is not, and Oxford's mill rate is 22, 23. So this is not something, I've heard this again and again from people, you know, your mill rate is, it's like when we hit 40, it's like the end of the world for Woodbridge, and I just don't agree with that. But as far as the budget goes, if we don't figure out a way to increase the grand list, I don't see how we're ever gonna be able to lower taxes or lower the mill rate. It's just, and there's really, I can remember when I first got on the Board of Finance in the late 80s, Russ Stoddard was first selectman at the time, and he said at that point, the grand list is gonna eventually not grow because there's really not that much land available in Woodbridge. There really isn't. And that was right after Woodbridge bought the Wallace property. I don't know how many of you remember that, but that was headed for 225 homes or something. And so we've bought up all the land that could be developed. So the chances of increasing our grand list are minimal. Of course, the country club, and I'm not advocating one way or another, but the country club would obviously give us a boost in our grand list eventually. That's going to be decided at some point in the future. As far as the budget goes, I met with Tony, and I've had discussions with Tony, and Beth sat in on one of them, and I asked Tony to put together a list of items that will get us, I'd like to get it down under 1%, which would give us 5 years in a row of really responsible budgets. But to get it under 1%, there's going to be some pain, I think. It's a good way of putting it.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. But we're going to have hard decisions to make on March 4th, Karen? Okay. So Wednesday?
We get to do them next week.
You get to do them next week.
Tuesday. We have to make our hard decisions.
So Tony and I went through Tony made up a page of things. I had some items. And we'll everybody go through and make your own items. And when we meet on March 4th, we'll talk about it. But I just don't see, I can't support a budget of 2% or something like that. I can't do it with the mill rate going up, et cetera. So, but to get it under 1% will be painful for, not terribly painful, but everybody's gonna pay the price. Now, I've also heard from people, oh, you got too many people working over at Town Hall, and I hate to put you on the spot, Tony, but could you maybe just, off the top of your head, run through, we've had a lot of reductions in the workforce. Just give us a few examples.
I would say in the past about 4 years, 3-4 years, we eliminated a parks director position. The senior clerk that was in the building official and the town clerk. The lieutenant at the police department. The circulation assistant at the library. In some of these cases it went to part-time. In other cases it were eliminated and the work was given to existing personnel. That's 4. Payroll clerk in the finance department. And in the requested budget, That's 5. And the requested budget, there's the building officials now part-time, the grants coordinator was eliminated in the selectmen's department, and the mechanic in public works. So that's 8 positions in 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's not like we've been doing nothing.
And I've begun to tell people who come to me and say, you know, he said, we gotta cut expenses, you gotta cut, and I said, well, here's what you're gonna do. First of all, we met with Amity, and I'll have a report on Amity's budget, the status of Amity's budget. And Jim Zioli got up to speak, and he said to them, and I also said this to the Orange Board of Education, that the cost of education is becoming unsustainable. It's becoming just unsustainable. We just can't keep granting all these increases, and Amity is hopefully gonna respond to that. But I've told people who tell me, I said, well, then I'll tell you what you gotta do. If you think because we have basically shaved every budget that we can out of everything that's available. What you need to do if you wanna cut this budget is come to me and tell me where you want us to start cutting people. So for example, you wanna let 2 people go in public works and we'll have 7 routes instead of 9, and your streets won't get plowed that quickly. Or you wanna cut people in the library, and we can start closing at nights, and give me some detailed information as to how you want us to cut this budget, because in my opinion, the only way you're gonna get it down significantly is you gotta start letting people go, and services are gonna suffer. Something that I personally, I've never heard people saying they want that, and I think the level of service we give in this town, it's just a function of the town. We give a lot of good service, and until people are willing to give me some concrete ideas, I tell them, I don't wanna hear about this, you know, every year, if you watch us, we go item by item by item, and cut this and cut this and cut this, and we're gonna do it again this year, and this year is gonna be very interesting, so. That's, I think, where we stand. I'm one of 6. I'm shooting along with Tony to try and get this budget under 1%. And when we sit down and come up with the ideas as to how we're gonna do that, we're all gonna have to decide whether we wanna do that or not, so. Anybody else wanna lend in, it's fine with, let me know. Anybody? Okay, well, March 4th will be an interesting night. Tony's working on it. Luckily, we've got some, Amity is, I think, gonna come, well, they've been told if they want the support of the 3 towns, they've gotta come down,
Been
so.
a big increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll go over that when I go my Amity, my Amity liaison report. And that's it. So with that, Tony.
Yes. Thank you, Matt. Our budget so far through January is a slight surplus, $150,000. We have a surplus in charge for services, primarily due to building permit fees and conveyance taxes, about $50,000. We received $671,000 in surplus Amity funds this past month, although I did not include it in this projection with anticipation that all or most of it will be used in the budget process. So I did not include it in this projection. The selectmen's office has a surplus we've discussed previously. The grants writer position was not being filled. The building official has a surplus due to the creation of the part-time building official. We will have a deficit in waste management. Our recycling costs continue to skyrocket. I believe they've approached or have increased to $80 a ton. I don't know if you've seen some of the antiquated way in which a lot of Connecticut recycling is separated, because we put it all in one and then it's got to get separated and the glass contaminates the stuff. So the way it's working now is not working very well, which is causing our recycling per ton to be over $80 to get rid of it, and the municipal solid waste is 62 or 63. So it's much cheaper for us. It used to be the other way around. So that continues to be an issue. Benefits are expected to generate about $70,000 or $80,000, mostly due to some of the issues we discussed about vacant positions and some savings in workers' compensation. So those are the highlights of this year's budget so far. So far, it's going well.
Any questions on that? Woodbridge Board of Ed financial report, you wanna cover that, Tom, in your report, or is there a surplus? Okay. I guess they still have a small surplus,
Correct.
$20,000.
$20,000, a small surplus, that's right.
Okay. Revaluation update, Tony?
So Betsy and I went over the revaluation update at the selectmen's meeting. It was on the screen, and so what I thought was I would just sort of present to you some of the highlights of that presentation. As you know, we required to revalue property every 5 years. It's basically the grand list is used to determine the distribution of the tax burden amongst the residents. So we have to periodically measure the grand list to fair market value. And so periodically you have to revalue and get the grand list in accordance with fair market value, which is what we just did. So last one we did was October of 2014, which was for the 15-16 budget. So October of 19 was the measure date, and so that's for the budget coming up next year. As Matt indicated, our grand list was down for about $40 million, a little more than $40 million. You can see the comparison by style. The average percent change in value, multifamilies were up 29%. That's clearly where the increase was, and the raised ranches were up 4%, but the rest are either zero or in the negative in terms of going down in value. So you can see that's sort of an interesting fact there. We also did a comparison by size, and the you can see the homes over 5,000 square feet had an average reduction of 12.6%, and you can see as you changes in the size range, the larger the size, the larger the reduction, right? So 4,000 to 5,000 square feet is 9.5%. You can see on the chart there. So clearly, the larger the home, on the average, the larger the decrease in value. It's probably not a surprise, but it sort of shows that in the chart. Lastly, we did it by value. You have a similar issue there in terms of the more valuable the home, the larger the percent reduction in the value. So it just shows you what the trends are there. The previous grand list, or the previous year, at 40.23 mils was the mill rate generated 46,954,268. So if we use the current grand list at 40.23 mils, you generate 45,149,442, which is a difference of $1.8 million. So as you were indicated earlier, Matt, in order to get to the $46 million, you need an additional 1.61 mils. So so if you do nothing and you want to raise 46,954,268, just like last year, it's a zero increase.
1.61.
You have to add 1.61 mils just to get to that point.
And that's not going to be unique to Woodbridge. No. It's not.
So it just shifts.
Yeah.
The values shift, and so I thought that was an interesting fact.
It's very helpful to see it this
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
I think, so.
Yeah.
It was a great chart, I mean, a great
Yeah,
presentation.
no,
They
it's-
gave it to the board last week.
Because we're going to have to explain it, because again, I don't know, it seems like I heard one person say at a meeting, 40 mils, that's a sign the town is failing. Nah, I don't think we're failing, are we? I mean, I think we're still doing fine with our bond rating, and.
Sure, yeah.
The bond rating agencies even get into mill rate?
No,
Right, I don't think they care.
they'll get
you know?
into grand list perhaps.
Yeah,
But not mill rate.
right.
Yeah,
Mill rate is a function of your grand list and your budget.
right.
But this is something everybody experiences and understands,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it speaks to all of us, so it's very helpful, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Reminder, again, very important. I hope everybody will make our March 4th meeting. I know I spoke to Paul Kariakos. He called me, let me know he couldn't make this meeting, but he said he would definitely be at the March 4th meeting.
Can I ask a question? That's at
Yeah.
6, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Other?
No.
Nothing. Funding requests. Okay. There are two. And I know Todd has a question on one of them, because even though we're getting late, so I had your letter all ready to read if you weren't here.
Okay.
You're here in person, so. All right, so the first one is a request for funding, 1920-13, in the amount of $10,000 for the purposes of funding Phase 2 of the security review for Beecher Road School. I'll make a motion to approve that. Second? Okay, discussion.
So, probably don't,
I set you up, Tom.
probably don't need to hit each one of them, I guess, but, we're looking at $10,000, right? So, I was just curious, what was, allocated for phase one?
$10,000.
10,000.
Yep.
And was, I guess, this isn't on my list of questions, but was there initially planned phase two? Or-
Yes.
So it was approved as a phase one and a phase two?
There was a contemplated as a phase one and phase two. Phase one was already funded in the operating budget during the budget process, but there was not funding for phase two. And, so our thought was to see how phase one went before we funded phase two.
So what was the purpose of the first phase? Was it, so I'm assuming this was in response to the lockdown that Beecher had?
Right.
So what was the purpose of the first assessment, and then what are we expecting?
The first phase
Alright.
was an information gathering and interview, a lot of interviewing and information gathering and reviewing of reports.
And was a report issued?
No.
So wouldn't we want to get a report before we?
There was an, presentation to the Board of Selectmen in executive session.
Okay,
And based on that, the funding request was approved to go to the second phase.
so the Board of Selectmen was satisfied with the results of phase one and they're interested in going towards phase two?
Yes.
And what's phase two gonna do? Are we gonna get recommendations or a plan or something?
Phase two will be, a series of, I would say, roundtable discussions and, what's the term when they do a, like a drill, based on the findings on phase one, corrective actions on from phase one, recommendations, and then phase two will be to go through roundtable discussions, bring everyone together, come up with, ways to, improve things, and, have drills,
Okay,
and a final report.
all right, and then as far as the departments involved, the superintendent, the police chief, the fire chief,
All those departments are involved.
they've all been involved and they're all okay with moving on to phase two, I guess, with,
I haven't spoken to any of them, but I know that,
so were they at least
they all have been involved and
informed of?
they've all had discussions, and they all will be part of phase two.
Okay,
It's a collaborative discussion, it's a collaborative type of, supposed to be collaborative and bring people together and to address everyone's concerns.
okay,
That's the,
so hopefully out of the
Idea, anyway.
phase two will come up, we're not gonna have to come back in 6 months for a phase three to
not to my,
figure out what
not
we
that
need
I'm
to
aware of.
implement for, based on phase two.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, well, if the Board of Selectmen was satisfied with phase one and wants to go to phase two, then I was just curious. I mean, I didn't see anything and I hadn't heard of anything coming out, so I was just curious.
Fair enough.
We met in an executive session, so it was difficult to,
Okay,
you know.
that's fine.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next, and finally is 1920-15, which is also a request for funding for Public Works for removal of diseased and storm-damaged trees. And there's a memo from Warren attached. So I will move acceptance of request for funding 1920-15 in the amount of $20,000.
I'll second it
Any questions
for
on
the
that?
purpose of conversation.
Go ahead.
Okay, again. So it sounds like there's already an accounting of the diseased trees that we're supposed to be looking at and taking down?
So Warren has trees that he would like to remove. But he has no more money left to remove any trees. So should an emergency come up or a tree that's dangerous, he doesn't have any funds to remove those trees. So the idea is for him to have the funds available, should he need to take down a tree that, you know, but instead of us waiting, okay, we got a tree, how much it's gonna cost, then you come to the selectmen, you come to the finance, meanwhile the tree is gonna, you know, fall on somebody. Warren would like the discretion to at least use the funds, for emergency purposes, until such time as he's towards the end of the year, and then maybe he can start taking down some of the trees on his list, but at least for, the short term.
So I know it's even going about these trees,
The-
it's
Mostly
probably
ash trees.
the ash borers
Yeah.
and all those, yeah, so that's been a couple of years.
And I know
now.
he has one, as a matter of fact, he has one that he'd like to take down in the next couple days.
It's near public
It's-
property.
Yeah, it's on town property and it's near a lot and a home.
Okay,
As I read this memo, this is not cosmetics, this is, if
No.
there's an emergency,
And if you
a
know
road is
Warren,
blocked,
Warren
the
would not
wire is
just
down,
take down a tree,
knowing-
cause,
right, no, I
Correct.
wasn't,
Correct,
I wasn't
You know.
thinking that, and I
Yeah.
know
yeah,
yeah,
when
no,
there's storms, they have to come out sometimes and
yeah.
yeah.
take down trees, it was just, I was just thinking he had the list, so he would have known what he was going forward with,
Yeah.
so I guess we'll see something maybe in his budget going forward to
Yeah.
address that,
Yeah, he does, he put an increase in his budget. To
or maybe
address-
not.
I have a question, Tony, though,
Yeah.
That's where
to
you
Tom's
come in
point.
again.
Does Public Works do this, or do we outsource
We
this?
outsource it.
We just
Yeah.
outsource it,
Yeah.
okay.
But so I guess that was the last point, was he's taking it from rentals and equipment.
It should be, it's actually, the title of the account's probably not correct, we should change that to, contracted services. It's
Yeah.
probably more appropriate. I mean,
Because that brought up another question that I was thinking about, but I didn't put in here. If we're renting equipment, then would it make sense to purchase the equipment
right, yeah, it's
long-term?
not, it's mostly contracted services.
Okay.
It's a street sweep, well, not that street sweeping anymore, it's catch basin cleaning, it's line painting, it's, tree removal,
Is it the guy with the big bucket up there? We don't have those.
which one?
You know, when you
Yeah,
have to go way up high like
sometimes.
that, and it's like, please.
Yeah, sometimes,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of risk involved with removing trees, and
right,
so,
it's a lot of risk.
yeah.
Well, it's definitely something you'd like to sub out, because
Yeah.
it is pretty dangerous, there's a liability,
Liability, right, yeah.
so,
He uses different companies too, it isn't always the
And
same
he gets
one.
pricing from
Yeah.
different companies to get the
Right,
best price,
sure.
you know.
so could we amend the request to go to that line item as opposed
Just
to?
change that.
Oh, no, it's the same line item, I just have to change the name on the financials,
Okay.
that's
yeah,
all.
From rentals.
I changed it in the budget, but I didn't change it on Munis, so it prints, they're used to calling it that,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, anything else? Those in favor? Aye. So Tony, quick question. With the approval of these two, our contingency fund at February 20th is $313,925. Now, is there some labor stuff?
There
that's
is,
coming out of there?
yeah.
Any idea how much?
It's all depends on how the winter goes, it all depends on, how things go in police, but,
Okay.
we won't need, all of that.
Okay.
I'll have a better idea probably by, April, I'll have a real good idea. By the.
Because you know we like to fund
Yeah.
things from
Yeah,
next year into this year and
Yeah.
save money for,
Yeah.
okay.
I can get a good idea by, your
Yeah.
March meeting, next meeting.
Yeah, and hopefully, I don't wanna say it because I'll jinx it.
Yeah,
End
don't
up with
say it.
7 blizzards.
Yeah, don't say it. Now you said it.
Okay, approval of minutes, we have a few to do. First is Tuesday, December 10th, which was a joint Board of Selectmen meeting. This was capital budgets, right? So I will move acceptance of the minutes of Tuesday, December 10th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye, opposed, abstained, okay. Next is December 12th, which again was a capital budget meeting. And I'll move acceptance of the minutes of Thursday, December 12th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Any corrections on these? Okay, all those in favor? Next is our regular monthly meeting on Thursday, January 16th. I will move acceptance of the minutes of Thursday, January 16th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? No? All those in favor? Aye, abstain?
Abstain,
Okay. Next
because I
is,
wasn't there.
January 21st was the first of our budget hearings, and I will move acceptance joint with the Board of Selectmen I'll move acceptance of the minutes of January 21st as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on these? Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed, abstained. Next is our second budget hearing with the Board of Selectmen, January 23rd. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of January 23rd as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on these? No? All those in favor? Aye. And finally, our final budget hearing with the Board of Selectmen was Tuesday, January 28th, and I'll move acceptance of the minutes of Tuesday, January 28th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, any abstains? No? All right, next is the first Selectmen's report.
Thank you, Matt. We had an extremely lengthy Board of Selectmen meeting last week. I think one of the longest ones ever. 4.5 hours, 5.5 hours, I don't know. It was pretty, yeah, about 5 hours, pretty long. And we had 4 executive sessions that may account for part of it. First one was related to the proposal for phase 2 of the safety and security at Beecher Road School, and that has come to you tonight. Second one was related to the contract for the Country Club of Woodwards. It's still in progress. As soon as we have an update, I'll let you know. We awarded the land leases for the 2020 growing season, minus the one at the Darling House, and we hope to solve that issue completely this coming Tuesday night. We have a budget meeting at allegedly 6 o'clock. I don't know if it's going to happen as early as that, because we're meeting at 5 o'clock with the 3 groups who have presentations for the proposal at the Darling House, and that starts at 5 o'clock. And then hopefully we can make some final decisions about where that's going to end up, and then we start at 6 o'clock with budget recommendations from the budget to you guys for your March 4th meeting. Yeah. So that's that. Interestingly, we adopted the resolutions that SCROG had proposed for 2 grants for the 15-member SCROG, one for cybersecurity and one for recycling of food waste, which we're already doing at Beecher Road School, which is kind of exciting. I don't know if you saw some articles, there's been some in the paper about Beecher, but we probably would have had to put money in our budget for the cybersecurity grant, correct? But now we're gonna hopefully jump on with the other 14 towns to get that done, and it's very important, as Tony reminds me all the time, with our cybersecurity. Just to let you know, it's nothing related to finance, but the Sustainability Committee recommended that we rename the transfer station to the Transfer and Recycling Center. So we agreed to do that. And we had another executive session related to police and fire dispatch, and we have since had another meeting with both fire and police, and we're moving slightly forward on that issue. And lastly, we had an executive session related to AMR and the contract, and at this point, the Board of Selectmen, the contract was up as of December 31st, 2019, and we had gotten an original extension of 2 months while we figure out what we're going to do with that, and it was the unanimous vote of the Board of Selectmen to extend the contract through December 31st of 2020. While we decide, we're gonna evaluate our options and hopefully move forward on that, but we have,
I'm sorry, when?
well,
So when?
the end of this year.
Oh, so,
Yeah.
so we've extended it the entire year?
Yes, through December 31st of 2020.
I thought we were going month to month.
We were for 2 months, but now we're doing it, it was the agreement of the board. We had a presentation from EMS, what is he, Roy Ivans is the chair of that commission, and Dr. Alan Davison, who's a member. And I can't really tell you much more about that in executive session, but the board did vote to extend it through December, so we can evaluate what we're gonna do with it going forward. I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Liaison reports, I'll start with Amity. As you, if you remember, when last we spoke, Amity had presented a budget calling for an increase of 3.95%. which, as I said, was, in my opinion, not acceptable. So there was a big meeting on, I believe it was February 10th, and it was in Orange, as a matter of fact. Jim Zioli from Orange spoke, and basically, as I said before, he told them that the budget increases are becoming unsustainable, and he told his town the same thing. He actually said to them, look at poor Woodbridge, they don't have the commercial tax base we do. And that's something I always tell people too, when they talk about taxes. If you look at our North Haven's grand list went up by 10%. Look at the commercial property they have. Universal Drive and it's just unbelievable. Now Amazon is moving in. Orange, look at Orange's commercial property on the Post Road in where Outback Steakhouse and all those places are. We just don't have, we all know what we have in commercial. We're strictly, was it 93 or 94%
Yeah.
residential taxes. So Jim basically told them that their budgets are unsustainable. And basically what happened was the 3.95%, Dr. Byers gave us some alternatives, how she could bring it down to 3.65, how she could bring it down to 2.95, how she could bring it down to 2.82, and how she could bring it down to 2.28. And the consensus was it was going to fail across all three towns, which nobody wanted. And so I believe she was told to try and get it down to 2% or 2.2%. And perhaps we could support it. And the items that she was using to reduce it, none of them affected education. For example, $200,000 for school resource officers, which I understand through the grapevine that the schools don't want them, the two middle schools. They do not want a school resource officer if they want to do a security guard or something like that. So that's one of the items she took out, amongst many others. So it looks like it will get down to 2.2%, which I'll find out. We have a meeting Monday night. And hopefully,
You'll know
I'll know
Monday?
Monday.
Yeah.
That should be,
Where is that meeting?
it's,
At the high school?
yeah, it should be very interesting. So that's where we're at. So that will help us get to what we're talking about here.
Right.
So it's quite a bit of money.
Sorry,
Beyond,
Matt, did she say anything about, because at the budget meeting that we had, she was talking about the importance of technology and
Yeah.
how she didn't have the
yeah,
the money
that's still in there.
okay,
Yeah, because
it has to be.
I was talking to a couple of people who teach in Hamden, who happen to be clients of mine. They're still shut down. They still don't have internet and everything else. They got hacked. Oh, it got hacked, yeah. Oh, yeah, they're still not back. They're still, fighting it, so. Yeah, Monday will be a very interesting meeting, and I think they came to the realization that if they want to get the support. Now, Orange still might not support it, because Jim Leahy, who was there, basically said that the only way Joe Nuzzo, who's the Amity representative, could vote for it is if they tell him to vote for it. And usually they're not going to approve it unless it's 1%. So chances are he's not going to vote for it regardless. But I got the feeling that John Grabowski from Bethany would support it, and I think I would support it too. Again, it's a lot better than what we thought originally, and we do have more kids, so. Other than that, at Amity, really nothing. The surplus is 418,000. They're guaranteeing that it's not going to be that huge number that it's been year after year, but we'll see. Anything can happen. So that's it for Andy. The only other thing, Paul Kuriakose sent me something he wanted me to read. If I can find it. Let's see here. There it is. About AMR, I guess he's liaison. He wanted me to read this. So here's what he wrote. Hi, Matt. As I mentioned to you on the phone, the commission feels strongly that AMR is doing an excellent job at providing emergency services. They have established a strong track record over many years of good service. The commission is very concerned about making any changes. Additionally, getting the licensing for the town back from AMR is not at all trivial. Ray Stewart reported to the commission that in his discussions with other towns, it took a full-time effort for almost a full year for a senior fire official to accomplish this. So he wanted me to read that. So, but I guess after that, you guys voted to extend it till the end of the year. Okay.
So which commission was he reporting from?
EMS, yeah. He's a liaison, yeah. Okay, Tom.
So I wasn't able to get to the Human Services meeting, but I will be at the next one. Jeanette Glicksman is the new director, interim director. Up and going, working. The Board of Ed, Beecher. The last time they met was the same night as one of our budget meetings, a combined meeting.
Right.
So we were here. Thomas said they're meeting this coming Monday.
Yeah, their regular meeting would have fallen on President's Day, so they postponed it, so the next meeting is gonna be this coming Monday.
Okay.
So
We
we
both plan on being there. Yep.
Okay. Ellen, you have anything?
No, I wasn't at the rec commission, but I reviewed the minutes and I've been in touch with Andrea, and basically there's really nothing new other than what John Adamovich presented to us when he was here. So we got the update.
Tom?
just the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
which didn't need to-
Oh.
Yeah, so the next meeting is coming up.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Susan?
Well, somehow I had to be in two places at one time. I don't know how that worked out, but, both commissions met the same night. I got to the fire commission. A good chunk of what was discussed there, as I understand it, the subject of some executive session, so I'm not gonna talk about it, frankly. And I missed the library commission, but I did talk to Eric the next day, and, they're just plugging along with their budget process as we are, so nothing to report there.
Okay.
Other than the conversation that we had the
Yep.
other day, yeah. Okay.
Susan,
Anything
you
else?
weren't in the exec-
All right, so March
It
4th,
sounded like you were.
bring your
No.
pencil sharpeners, bring your sharp
Oh, it
pencils,
sounded-
and I'm sure Tony will have some interesting, oh, go ahead.
I was not in the fire session.
Oh.
But what was talked about at their meeting is the subject of Board of Selectmen executive
I
session,
gotcha.
so I don't wanna cross-pollinate.
I got
There
you.
we go.
Okay, so I was starting to say March 4th, Wednesday?
Yep.
Tony's working on it, and I am too, so, but, go through and we'll decide what we want to do, but again, my goal is under 1%, so.
Okay.
Anything
We'll,
else?
we'll see on Monday. That'll be a good.
That'll be a good start.
indicator. Good start, yeah.
I've got to believe she's going to come in at 2 or 2.2, and that's a lot of
Good.
money for
Yeah.
us.
That's public, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get there.
And once again, I just want to, because this has come up several times, because I've talked about it, and I'll just mention this. I spoke to Jim Zioli, I spoke to a few people from Orange. Anybody who says Orange isn't happy with Fieldstone Village, it's not true. They're thrilled to death with it, so they call it a cash cow, that's what they call it, so. And I'm not saying anything, but I've heard remarks, oh, it didn't really do anything for Orange, and they're thrilled with it, so. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye.